Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session, a special program, a talk by Sister Judy Rodgers, uh, who's a media consultant, who used to be a media consultant and now is a resident of Peace Village, a learning and retreat center of the Brahma Kumaris. And today's topic is part of a special program for Women's Day, the International Women's Day, which is on 8th March. So she will be speaking on the feminine powers of the soul. And apart from this particular uh, program, we also have another program for Women's Day on Sunday between 1 and 2 p.m. New York time. So please do feel free to join that as well. And a very interesting topic, tonight's topic, which the Judy Rogers is going to tell us more about the feminine powers of the soul. So over to you, Sister Judy.
Thank you, Kanu. Good evening, everyone. I wish we were together actually in a room having tea and cookies and enjoying ourselves instead of being online again. One of these days, we'll be together again. It's nice to see some of you. Susan, I haven't seen you in a while. Nice to see you. Hi. I was thinking about you today. Nice to see some of you who I know and many who I don't know. So, this feminine power of the soul, we could talk for weeks on this. So, I'm going to share a few thoughts with you. And then I don't know if we'll have time for questions later or not, or thoughts for me to hear your thoughts. Let's see how it goes. Um, but I want to start with sort of couple of simple, you might call them disclaimers, right? One is that there aren't female souls. You know that, right? The title kind of sounds like there might be female souls and male souls, but we know that souls don't have any gender. The body has a gender, but the soul doesn't have a gender. So when we talk about this topic, we're not talking about female souls. Second, feminine power is not something that only women have. And I know that you have brothers and sons and fathers and friends who are extremely loving and kind and compassionate and empathetic, etc. And they may be more that way than some of the women friends you have. So we're not talking about something that's only true for women. I think there are some things that our biology suggests. I think once you've been a mother, you do have certain motherly things that happen, and you kind of mother everybody, right? Everyone you look at could be your kid. Um, it's not the things, the ways we feel about our children aren't confined to our children. Everyone was a child at some point, and so those feelings do come with motherhood. And I think when we think about feminine power, I think a lot of us think about motherhood. Maybe not your own mother. Not everyone had one of those mothers, but the way that women show up with that kind of maternal care, that is an aspect of this as well. So the word that is most often associated with feminine power is Shakti. And this is a term you may have heard. There are many, many different ways that people talk about this. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this word Shakti, except to say it's from an Indian root, Indian origin. Um, it has to do with sort of an auspicious source energy that is sustaining and would you say, supportive as well as destructive. It also destroys weakness and other things. So in that sense, Shakti often refers to goddesses. And so there's a lot to talk about with that, but I'm going to steer away from using the Indian term and just say that we're talking about a kind of power that we're calling feminine, or we could call Shakti, but it's different from the world's notion of power. So if I were just to have sat down with you in a room and we were to have talked about how people normally talk about power, what would you think? You might think of military people. You might think of Wall Street. You might think of power over, right? Those power brokers, people with money and influence, people who can make things happen. Um, that's how we often think of power. That is not what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about something much more powerful than that. Um, the kind of power that I want you to think about tonight manifests as benevolence. It manifests as good wishes. It manifests as currents of support, as light. Um, it dispels people's worry and despair. It transforms what it touches. It cools anger. So the kind of power we're talking about is actually quite profound, and I know you have felt it. When someone is disheartened and they say, "Pray for me" or "Meditate for me," this is what they want. They want this current from you of good wishes. They want you to uplift them. They want you to give them some kind of subtle support when they're feeling in despair, or they're feeling really angry. They feel things have kind of gotten away from them. So the kind of power we're talking about is an inside out power. And you can develop this power. I would suggest to you that at one point you did have this power. You may not remember that. It may not have been this birth, but it was long ago you arrived with this kind of natural power. It is the natural power of the soul. And so we're going to go back to something you already know rather than talking about something that you've never had. You've had this power and you can have it again. So, this business of having, I'm going to use the word benevolence. So, benevolence comes from a Latin root. Bene means good, and volent comes from the source, would be wishes. So, benevolence, when someone is benevolent towards you, you feel from them that they have only good wishes for you. They only want things to go well for you. There's no thought inside of them of anything other than your well being. For some people, they had this in their past. It was an auntie of some sort, or a grandmother, or somebody who really, every time you were around them, you knew they just loved you for no particular reason. They just had a lot of love and good wishes for you. And you can feel that, right? We are very sensitive, we human beings. It's the being part that's sensitive. The human part, maybe not so much, but the being is energy and picks up energy. So we know when someone has good wishes for us. Um, so, how does that happen? And not only how does it happen, but how does it happen consistently? Because what I'd like to propose is that our aim, when you're on a spiritual path, you sort of have an aim, whether you've articulated it for yourself or not. And so our aim is to be able to be that way all the time with everyone. Most of us do have those kinds of feelings for people we are close to, people we have special love for. So for those people, we have a lot of good wishes. but we kind of pick and choose, right? Someone comes in front of us who we're not so fond of, and we kind of are, we pull our good wishes back. Now we're kind of neutral, or sometimes someone who really annoys us, we may actually have a little irritation that comes out to them. So what we're talking about when we talk about this feminine power is cultivating the ability to be like that all the time, which is completely possible. There's a secret to it, though. So, the secret to being able to be continuously benevolent, to be continuously having this good wishes, is that the quality of thoughts that you're holding inside are only pure. You have no impure thought, you have no weak thought. So, think a little bit about this. Think about what goes on inside. So become a little bit of an observer of your inside and think about all the things that go on that affect us. So, one of the things that affects our state of being is the outside pulls, um, setbacks, and situations. It could, I mean, we have so much of that right now, right? We're all quarantined. We might get a shot, we might not get a shot. We got a shot, we didn't feel well. We're in line for a shot, right? All that whole circus about that kind of a distraction. Jobs. Is my job going to keep up? Am I going to be able to work at home? Will I have to get on the public transit and work? Will I be safe? Right? This constant pulling that's going on from the outside. There's our bodies, all the physical issues that we have with our bodies. Um, and the older we get, the more physical issues we have with our bodies. So, right, it's constantly pinging us. My elbow hurts, my head hurts, my this, my that, all of those pulls. With money, with stuff, with matter, things we own. The more we own, the more we have to clean and store and insure and worry about and all of that. All of that crowds the inner state. All of those things come and lean on us and push and pull the mind. And then you've got the inside stuff. So the stuff I just described is in your outer world. It's in the world of matter and your outside world. But what about the inside stuff? What about the your thoughts about the past or your thoughts about the future? Right? We have a lot of some people automatically go to the past. They remember things, they replay things, they regret things. Some people go to the future. Yeah, they worry about things, they dread things. All of those are pulls. Then we have our thoughts of other people. This takes up a lot of the bandwidth in the mind because we have all these people in our lives, and chances are that the people closest to you may be bothering you the most. So we call those waste thoughts about those people. Sometimes they get them even negative thoughts about people. So it's like the stream of criticism that goes on in the mind, or the stream of advice. You might have little conversations in your mind that you'd like to have with someone else. Those little skits, those little dramas that go on in your mind, all of that is weakening. Each one of those thoughts that I've described so far weakens you inside. It's amazing, right? I mean, all of that whole world of worrying and concern and all of that, each time you have a thought like that, it actually weakens you. Patterns. Each of us has developed certain patterns inside that are coming from our experiences. So if we have patterns of jealousy, for example, or competition with someone else, all of that, those are all weakening thoughts. Those will all prevent you from wielding the kind of feminine power that we're talking about. So when you turn inside and you see these things going on occasionally, or more often, That's the work, right? That's the work we have to do. And this is why you have a meditation practice. I don't think you would have gone on this Zoom call if you don't have some kind of a practice, because this is a spiritual focus. And your spiritual focus is, okay, how do I create an inner state that leaves me calm, contented, loving, happy, even blissful, hopeful, joyful, right? How do I sustain that inner state? And how do I get so good at it that no matter what happens outside, it doesn't pull me off of that state? That's the aim. And when we meet people who are able to do that, we're very touched. We can feel the minute we meet someone like that, we think, oh, that's wonderful. And we just want to be around them. We don't even care if they say anything, right? We could just go sit by them and just get their, that benevolent vibe. If they say something, that's great. But if they don't say anything, we don't care, because they've got that nice vibe. That's what we're going for. So in order to be there, we have to have a pure and elevated inner state. And this means that the thoughts, each thought you're producing, has a vibration. Every single thought. Think how many thoughts roll through your mind all the time. Each one of them has a vibration. And so the more elevated the vibration, the more benefit that you're giving. And there's more benefit in the power. There's more benefit in what you're putting out. The lower the vibration, the lower the thought. So a negative thought has a negative vibration. Oh, and that vibration starts affecting you like in your body, right? Before it even leaves the body, it's already affecting you. So a negative thought, a negative vibration. A wasteful thought, kind of a neutral, kind of like static vibration. A positive thought, a pure thought, now it's becoming more elevated. And actually, it's beginning to bring a lot of benefit. And then you have an elevated thought. So when you think about a positive or pure thought, if you had a little bucket next to you and you kept it full of positive and pure thoughts, and every time you needed one, you went and pulled one out. You know who I thought of first when I thought of this was Mr. Rodgers. How he would say, I like you just the way you are. Now, he said it to 3 and 4-year-olds and they loved it. But at 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, that's what we want to hear too, right? I like you just the way you are. That's an example of a pure thought. You don't have to do anything different. I like you just the way you are. If someone says to you, I see what's beautiful in you. I love it when you laugh. I love it when you cook. I see that you have a gift with children. I see that you have a gift with gardening, right? As someone looks at you with appreciation, that's a pure thought. So this positive and pure thought is the ground we want to be on. This is what we want to keep closest to us. This is the stock that we want to be working from. Because when we're holding those thoughts, then the vibrations that come off of us are benevolent. The soul is naturally, in its original state, it's naturally pure, naturally peaceful, naturally loving and happy. The soul doesn't have to learn those qualities. It is that. You can't remove love from the soul. If we were going to do soul surgery, we couldn't carve out the love. It's intrinsic to the soul. Other things are acquired. Anger, jealousy, competition, greed, those are acquired because of situations we were in. But purity, peace, love, happiness, these are innate in the soul. Therefore, this is the source of our power. I'll tell you a story. I may have told you this before, but I remember being in Oxford, England, in a dialogue with about 30 people. And Dadi Janki, who some of you would have heard of, she was the head of the Brahma Kumaris up until she left the body 1 year ago this month. And she was so wise. I just loved to be with her because she was continually surprising. And so we had a guy in the dialogue who was from Namibia, Africa. And Dottie was talking, she gave an opening talk, and she talked about the importance of having these powers of love and peace. And she spoke for about, half hour, and she got done and she's smiling at everyone. And this guy from Namibia, Carva Pop, put his hand up and he said, Dottie, I mean, I like your talk and everything. He said, but where I come from, I don't think peace and happiness are even appropriate. He said, we got a lot of problems. We have viruses, we've got violence, we've got, corruption in government. We have so many things wrong. He said, I just don't think it's even the right thing to do. And she always loved it when somebody engaged. So she came over to him and she waited a minute. And then she said, I understand what you're saying. She said, but you know what? There is no power in anger. Even righteous anger. She kind of said the equivalent of all heat, no light. She said the power is in the soul's intrinsic nature. This is where, this is where your capacity lies to bring in the other and to mix that in with your own vibration is to become toxic. She said it actually becomes toxic for the soul to have that anger in there. And then when you are toxic, that's what comes out. So I actually just got a little video from him this week, and that was the story he remembered when he reflected on Dottie, was her telling him that. So when you think about it, whatever you are inside is what will come out of you. If you are angry inside, that's what will come out of you. That is the vibration that will come out of you. That you will have anger in your vision. When you're cooking, you will put anger into your food. When you open your mouth to talk, you'll speak with anger. When you think about someone, those vibes of anger will go. That's the way souls work. Souls are energy. They're vibrational beings. Each of us communicates through vibrations. I mean, we are constantly sending. So we have to look inside and attend to the state of the being inside. Because when we do that, then the way everything that comes out of us, as we elevate what's going on inside, we elevate how we express outside. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples of little stories for you to think about. So one of them, you remember in 2019 when there was a terrible shooting at a mosque in New Zealand, and 49 Muslims were killed in that. And the world watched this female president, Jacinda Ardern, deal with that. And she brought what we would call feminine power to it. So the very first thing she did when she spoke to the Muslim community, she covered her head. So she was saying, I'm with you. I'm not the authority telling you people, I'm so sorry what happened to you. I am with you, right? So imagine the compassion she felt inside, the love that she felt inside for each one of them, and how she conveyed that just by what she put on. And then when she opened her mouth, she spoke with immense love and respect. When she made a policy, she said, the government of New Zealand, and this wasn't just her, this was with her legislators, will pay all your funeral expenses regardless of your immigration status. We will make sure that you can honor your loss with dignity. And then they moved gun legislation through almost immediately, something the US was never able to do even after Sandy Hook. This is feminine power. And it wasn't just because she was a woman, but she was using these things we're talking about. She had love, she had pure wishes, and that benevolence was what everybody noticed. That benevolence was what healed everyone. It came out in everything she did, the clothes she put on, the things she said, the legislation she passed. She held that inner state. Now, there's another example that just happened last week. It's a man. So it doesn't have to be a woman. There are wonderful men who have this feminine power. Did you hear the story on CNN about that middle school kid who was getting in trouble because he wouldn't take his hat off? This was a story from Indianapolis. It came through last week. The little kid was walking around school. He wouldn't take his hat off. And there is a school rule, you cannot wear a hat. So the dean sat him down and said, talked with him and said, you really have to take your hat off and what's going on. And the kid got more and more upset. And he said, after about a half hour, he said, okay, I'm sending you to the principal. So the little kid is sent off to the principal, and the principal closes the door and he gets down close to him and he said, what's going on for you? And after a few minutes, the little kid confided that he'd had a terrible haircut and he was sure everyone was going to laugh at him. Now, if you remember being 13, this can be a crisis, right? May not be a crisis at 30 or 40 or 50, but at 13, it can wreck your whole life. So the principal realized that he was pretty distressed. So he got out some photos of his kids and he said, now I cut my kid's hair. What do you think? So he's showing them the pictures of his children. And the little boy's looking at the pictures and he says, yeah, it's okay. And he said, so if I go home and get my clippers, can I cut your hair? The little boy said, yeah. So he gets in his car, he drives through the snow, goes home, gets his clippers, comes back, keeps his office door closed, puts the little cloth around the kid and cuts his hair. And then after he gets the hair done and the boy admits that it's okay, he checks in all day long to make sure the kid's okay. That's the kind of power we're talking about, right? It's just love. I mean, the first guy who talked to him was just going to punish him. The trip to the principal's office was supposed to be punishment. Okay, sorry, you're in for it now. And this is the way that, we don't notice sometimes what we can actually do, the capacity of this other kind of power that we're talking about. The kind of power that we're talking about tonight transforms everything. Normally a kid who has that experience grows up remembering that. They replay it their whole lives. This bad experience where I was mortified in front of my friends. But someone who looks at it the way that principal looked at it, Jason Smith is that principal's name, changes everything. This is the kind of transformative power that we're talking about. It's much more powerful than authority power, much more powerful than legal power, much more powerful than force, is this power of this pure good wish, of seeing the other one as they are. So let's go back to this business of each thought. So one of the things we have to begin to do is slow down our thoughts, because they come very fast, right? If you had to really account for every thought, it'd be pretty hard to figure out what you're thinking at most moments. So you have to get in the habit of pausing when you're in a situation and thinking, what do I want to be? What state do I want to be in right now? What is it that I want to be able to do right now? So that you can intentionally create the quality of thought that is going to help you be the way you want to be. And this is why we have a meditation practice, is so we can begin to do that. And so as we hold that thought, the first place it shows up is in our eyes. When you were small, it may have been your grandmother's soup that got you well, but it may not have been because your grandmother was such a great cook. It may have just been that she loved you so much. And that it was her love that came through her eyes and into her soup. We believe that the energy of the cook goes into the food, which makes you then wonder if you ever want to go to a restaurant again, right? Because you don't know what all those chefs are thinking. But a loving person cooking, looking at the food with love and serving you that food with love that's a blessing. That meal is a blessing. So from your pure thought to your vision, and then to the attitude that you hold. So that principal, to go back to Jason Smith, had a feeling of compassion for that kid in his attitude. And so from his vision to his attitude, which actually, your attitude actually changes the vibration in the room. It actually changes the atmosphere. So I'm imagining that child probably got calmer and calmer as he was sitting with the principal. Before the principal even spoke or made his offer, right? Because he feels that the atmosphere is safe. When we hold a pure thought about someone, they feel safe with us. And so the atmosphere actually transforms. And then when we open our mouths, it comes through our words. Our words carry that benevolent feeling. It's not so much that we're so articulate or that we're eloquent, we have just the right words, but the quality of the words as they move to people tell people they're okay. They affirm, like Mr. Rodgers said, I like you just the way you are. The words, the feeling that comes out through your words is affirming. It's benevolent. Its good wishes are coming literally in your words. And then, of course, in your actions. When we talk about Jacinda Ardern, if what she did then became extremely benevolent, but it wouldn't have been if it were just mechanical, right? If it's just mechanical, it's not the same. So it's got to carry that kind of compassion with it, that feeling of love and compassion and all of that. So at this time in the world, people are very tired. They're very they're discouraged. I know you know this. I mean, I know so many people who have lost people or who've lost jobs or who have been held in the same apartment, going out just occasionally for food for months and months and months. And so there's a feeling in the world of weariness. And so this ability to have these good wishes for others is actually service. You know, the ability to carry that thought with you. And then when you look at the other one, have those good feelings. It's really an act of service. Even if you don't do big service, even if you're not out there in soup kitchens or orphanages or whatever, it's just the way that you show up. I went to a doctor's appointment. I may have told you this. I went to a doctor's appointment a few weeks ago, and I was consciously thinking about this business of being intentional about my thoughts. So I took a little sweet and a little blessing with me. And when they showed me into the doctor's office, I said to the nurse, I brought you a little sweet thing and I brought you a little blessing. She said, You did? I said, Mm-hmm. So I took out the blessing, gave it to her, took out the sweet thing and gave it to her. And she said, Oh, thank you. And I said, Are things okay with you? And she said, Well, in my little world, they're okay. And I said, What's in your little world? And she said, Well, my daughter is very, very sick. She's been in the hospital for 4 months. She lost the baby. And um, I said, Are there children at home? She said, Yes, there's 2 children at home. And I said, Oh, I'm so sorry. I said, Here, I have a blessing. I have another blessing. I have a blessing for her. And she said, Oh, thank you. And I said, What is her name? I'll think about your daughter. I'll hold her in my thoughts. And she said, Her name is Jamie. I said, Okay. I'll think about Jamie every time I sit to meditate. And I have been thinking about Jamie every time I sit to meditate. But you know what? The trick with this is you have to do this without checking. You're serving with these good wishes, and you don't have to go check and see, well, did she get better or did she not get better? Because we don't know what her destiny is, right? All we know is that we might be able to bring peace of mind. We might be able to bring comfort. We might be able to bring a kind of a quieting, contentment, sweetness into their life. Right now, we can't fix everything. As much as we would like to fix things, we cannot fix everything. But our benevolence, this ability to continuously have these good wishes, acts as kind of a salve on the broken hearts that people are carrying around. And there's so little of this right now. You know, people are so on edge that this particular kind of power can really transform the world in immense ways. And you can do it while you're walking around. You don't have to sit in meditation. You can do it on the street. You can do it in an elevator, right? I mean, whoever you're with, what you're doing is you are stabilizing yourself in the awareness that you are this soul, you are this being inside, that you are naturally pure, loving, peaceful, happy. And you just stabilize in that place. And then you hold one pure thought. And as you meet people, you're meeting them in that consciousness. You're meeting them with empathy, you're meeting them with compassion, you're meeting them with kindness, and that's it. And you just feel that this transformative power working from you. It's called Mansa Seva. Mansa means mind, Seva means serving. And anyone can serve from the mind, even if you're all cooped up in your house. I would say that it does require a little bit of practice, right? On keeping your mind in a good place. And we can do that. We can take a few minutes and do a little meditation. But I think the most important thing is just being aware of what people are going through right now. Parents, children, etc. And being as aware that this is a power that we can wield at any time just based on the inner state we're in. So all we have to do then is manage the inner state, which of course is hard. I mean, it's not that it's hard to make it constant. We can put ourselves there, but it's the keeping ourselves there that requires the constancy. You know, if you've ever met a saint or you've ever met a very spiritual person, um, you would notice right away that the atmosphere around them is very light. Have you ever been with the Dalai Lama in a room with him? He is a very funny and light guy. I mean, he's very likely to pull the beard of the person standing next to him or pat someone on the back. He's very light. Daddy Janky, very light. It's not that they aren't naive. It's not that they don't know what's going on in the world, right? The Dalai Lama was quite aware what was going on with the Chinese in Tibet. He wasn't missing it. But the world doesn't need our sorrow. The world has tons of sorrow. It doesn't need us to add our sorrow and worry to it, whether it's for our children or it's for the state of the world. What the world needs is our compassion, our love, our empathy, our forgiveness, our kindness, the sweetness, the humility, the patience. That's what the world needs from us. That's even what our bodies need from us. So when you think about why do I have a spiritual practice, this is why you have a spiritual practice, so that you can move through the world in that state. You know, sometimes we can get lost in the practice itself and think about the steps of the practice, or I have to sit a certain way, or it has to be a certain time, or the light has to be a certain way, or I've got to have this little picture, or whatever, in order to make it work. Um, but no, you don't need any of that. You may never have a special picture. You may never sit in a certain way. You don't have to be able to do the lotus position. That's not what it's about. What it's about is, can I make my inner state so beautiful, so kind, so loving, so pure, so deeply peaceful that everyone around me is touched by the atmosphere I create before I even open my mouth. So this requires that we do a couple things. It requires first that we know how to get ourselves in that state, and I'm going to lead you in a little meditation in a few minutes. And then it requires some checking. We have to notice when something has upset us. And you know, it's really important. Sometimes positive thinking can get in the way. You have to have an honest heart. You know, if something has pulled you off of your center, you've got to have an honest heart. You've got to say, you know what, I am upset. Something inside is bugging me. I have got some sorrow or worry or fear in my heart, and let me get rid of it. Let me bring in that powerful state that I know I need to have. That checking has to happen, because what your aim is for is to be constantly in this state, or as much as you can manage. And you know, sometimes we forget it. Sometimes we rely on the outside world to make us okay. Well, if the weather's good, well, if the snow will stop, well, if my stomach will stop hurting, well, if my mother-in-law will stop bugging me, you know, if something on the outside will change, I'll be okay. You'll wait forever. You will wait for the rest of your life. You have to make yourself okay so you can help others be okay. It's not about waiting for things in the outside world to configure so you feel okay, right? Because look at the way things are going. I mean, we're going to be waiting a bit if we wait for everything to be perfect so we finally feel at peace inside. We feel loving and peaceful inside because that is who we are. We are loving beings. We are peaceful beings. We are contented. That is our absolute nature. The rest of this we picked up along the way. It's like getting a burr on your sock when you walk in the woods. You just have to realize that all that other stuff is acquired. It's not us. And so, what we're doing when we make a commitment to live with this benevolence is we're going back to who we really are. We are naturally benevolent. We are naturally well wishers. And that's what we're returning to, especially now, so that we can serve. So, you want to do just a little bit of meditation? Okay, so let me say one more thing before we meditate. So, yes, this is who we naturally are, but it is also true that at this time we are tired, right? The world is tiring us, and the world is getting weaker. And so there is a way for us to renew ourselves. And that is if when the soul can access the power of the supreme soul or God or the source energy, because that energy is always that way. That energy doesn't wear down. We wear down because we come into the world and we're pulled and kind of affected by the laws of entropy. So we get tired, we get attached to things in the world, and we get weary. And there's a certain point when we can will ourselves into these positive places, but it's hard to sustain it if we don't learn how to connect with God. And what matters in this, if we're going to take power from God, it's not that we just call out to God. I, Judy, want you, God, to give me peace. It doesn't work like that. We have to become conscious of ourselves as the presence inside, the energy inside. And in that state, which we call soul consciousness, but you could call it the awareness of the true being, in that state, when you are identified as light, then when you reach up, that current comes down from the light to the light, and that's how you renew. So it's not a, I know for some of us that whole experience of God is elusive, but I just want to assure you that it's at the end of the road. I mean, it's what you want. It's what'll make you strong. It's what'll keep you strong. So, all right. So get yourself comfortable. Let's do a little bit of a meditation together, and we might have a little time for a question at the end. Let's see. So you should either have your feet under you, or your feet should be flat on the floor. Your neck should be straight. Your back should be straight. You can either close your eyes or you can keep them a little bit open. We tend to meditate with our eyes a little bit open. If that's comfortable for you, if it's not, no problem. Close your eyes. And so when we start, sometimes you want to just notice anything that might be distracting you and just let that go. So if it's something in the body, if it's something that keeps coming into your mind, Just acknowledge it and then just release it. Let it float away like down a river. And then bring yourself back to your center. And now you're going to turn your attention inside. Bring your attention inside. And sit in the seat of the soul. So this is a place behind the eyes where the soul sits lightly. And now you're looking at the inner world. It's like an inner ashram. And the more that you come here, the more clear and clean and open this space is inside. So when you first turn inside, you're a bit of a detached observer. Watch yourself. Notice what's going on inside. So you can notice your thoughts. And as you quiet your mind, your thoughts will slow down. And as your thoughts slow down, you can become still. And you keep your mind very stable. You are the light sitting behind the eyes. And then notice the heart. The heart always tells you the truth. So if you want to know how you really are inside, ask the heart. And sometimes we find the heart is holding something. Sometimes it's holding sorrow, or sometimes it's holding fear. So notice what's going on with the heart. And then just invite anything that's in the heart other than love to just move away from the heart. And now, you, the soul, hold only the most pure and elevated thought. You are peace. You are love. You are happiness. And allow the vibration to fill your heart. And to quiet your mind. Knowing that it's filling every soul, every cell in the soul, every cell in the body, and it's moving out beyond the body, touching everyone you know and everyone you don't know. You are light. and you are love. And now, in that place of stillness, filled with light, allow your attention to go up. It's like a beam of light going up. And if you stay with it, you find yourself in a realm of light, and you experience the presence of the spiritual parent, the source of life. And whatever it is you would like a little more of, you experience the current of that. So if you want a little more love, you send up the beam of the little bit of love you have to that one, and you experience the return of that instantly. It's a waterfall of love coming back. If it's courage you need, you take the little bit of courage you have and you offer that up. And instantly you feel the river of courage coming back. So just take a few moments. The soul, with its source, the parent, you fill yourself with what you need. And then, knowing that you can return anytime, you bring your attention back to the seat of the soul, with a promise that you will hold this state of purity, pure love, pure intention, so that you can serve the world. Om Shanti. So I think we're about at the end of our time. It's been lovely to be with you. Anita, did you want to say anything?
No, Sister Judy, I'm just in the meditative state.
Okay.
It was a wonderful talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, everyone who is joining us on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay.
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Om Shanti.
Sure.